It's probably Ephraim. Sneaking on work.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to just introduce yourself to the people for anybody who doesn't know you yet?
Sure. Yeah, I am Joseph. I'm a client of Kristian's who I worked with Kristian on an Immersion weekend in Manchester in June last year. June last year. And I'm an internet worker, so I work online. So I live pretty much internationally. Been in 8 or 9 countries in the last 18 months on like long stays as well, not just like a week or two, usually at least a month. And then in terms of other stuff that is like probably relevant to your viewers, I sort of came to Kristian with I came to Kristian at 37, and also as this like from a position of having done a lot of stuff in nightlife, having actually worked in nightlife, and having already had like quite a lot of the boxes ticked, to be honest, in terms of personal life and so on. So I was in a way coming in with just a very specific focus on daytime. I wasn't really coming in thinking, oh, I need to know just how to get a girlfriend if I go to the clubs or anything like that. It was really specific to daytime. And so that's why I contacted Kristian. I wanted to get out of this nighttime type scenario, and I'm not such a fan of the online stuff. So yeah, that's why I contacted Kristian, worked with him, and then since then it's just been a process of applying things, being part of this, being part of the entourage, being part of the group, and I've continued on my travels a little bit in Portugal and then through South America. So that's my background. I don't know if there's anything else you'd want me to mention.
No, I think that's good for an introduction. I think then, so we had our immersion in Manchester. Then you were knocking around, like you say, Portugal, a little bit of Europe, and then you went over to South America. And then we discussed in the previous live stream that you've basically been having your own immersion period to solidify the skill set on your own, which I think is really important. It's a case of I give you the playbook, and then it's up to you what you do with it. Yeah, you knew that you were going to be traveling around South America. That's an amazing playground to exercise the skill set. So, yeah, if you want to just talk to us about the process of going from us working together to then you actually handling this on your own, because I think that's the thing that guys will struggle with the most. It's like getting taught how to swim, you're wearing the armbands, then you have a lifeguard, and then you're on your own in the Mediterranean. So just describe that process, how you've gone about that.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was in the UK, one of the things I went back to Manchester, and one of the things I did was meet some of the guys there as well, which was really good. It was just nice to meet some people who were kind of interesting and into this stuff, and also B, you do want to be around other guys who are doing this. I think I did the first day on my own, and I think I messaged you saying like, "Wow, that was really hard doing it alone in Manchester." So I think having wings, even if you don't have an actual wing, having social things around, going out doing sessions. That's something I incorporated quite quickly. So even when I was in the UK, if I had a session, like I would usually meet a friend before or afterwards, usually afterwards actually. So I knew I had some things. I had a buffer at the end of my day at least. And so yeah, I actually quite enjoyed doing it in the UK, to be honest. It's familiar territory. It lit up some places that normally would just be a routine, boring place that I'd probably never go to, like just the town centre or whatever, my local city centre. Actually, it made it more interesting. And it almost gave me excuses like, oh, I need to go and get this new shirt or something. And I like, because I knew I would approach, it made day-to-day life a bit more interesting. So there was some progress in the UK, and I think you get to a point where you go, okay, I've gone as far as I can go within the context of these cities now. Unless I'd have moved literally to Manchester, I think could have done more there. But in provincial cities around the UK, I think if you're not in Manchester or London, maybe Liverpool. But I think for me, those are the two where you can actually really do it.
Mhm.
Other cities are just kind of like, you do what you want, you do what you can. But I think you've got to also accept the limitations of each city. So I started off in the UK, and then it really sort of kicked off in just moving through South America. So I will mention I was in Brazil for a time, and depends on, people have different perspectives on Brazil. There's many different areas of the country. It's such a huge country. It's like basically almost the size of Europe itself. So you can't paint a whole country with like one brush. But the city I was in was one of the more dangerous cities actually, as it happened. So it was like an amazing experience. Cold approach was not the easiest there, to be honest. Like I found it quite challenging. I did do sessions, but at a certain point in time, I think I mentioned like people weren't that up for being approached in the street, because usually that wouldn't be a good thing, even though it's like by someone who I'm not obviously not like a gang member or anything. It's just like, it's not actually what people are doing. It was mostly, I moved more towards nightlife, to be honest. So that's something just to think about. But yeah, the last 6 weeks I've done like a full immersion. So I've done, we did a live after my first session, which I recorded loads of stuff and sent it to the group. Since then, I've done 5 more days, where we call them Renaissance days, where you're just hammering the approach. You'll go and do 8 to 10 approaches, or at least like 6 to 10 basically, and that's your focus for the afternoon. I've done 5 more of those. So I've done 6 in total, and then in between those, they will be on a Saturday, and then in between those, I'd do maybe like a Tuesday evening or a Wednesday or a Thursday. I think maybe there might have been one week where I did like Monday to Thursday, just going out for a walk. But I would have in my head, if I see someone, I'm going to approach them. So I call those maintenance, where you just like, you go to your coffee shop in the evening or go to the supermarket, and you are looking to do an approach if you can, or even just have to stroll around just for half an hour going, can I approach anyone? And so of those, I probably did I'd honestly say probably about 15 of those. So like 6 big days, and then about 15 mini half an hour to 45 minutes, just trying to look for an approach or two. And so that was an immersion for me, like as a soloist, where like just going through Latin America, for me, that's about as much as is feasible, given the fact, I do have work, I do have other things I need to attend to. So that's been the process.
And how have you actually found it in terms of, because you've been doing this on your own? So do you have any sort of pieces of advice that spring to mind when it comes to actually doing this on your own? Because I think that's one of the areas that guys struggle with the most when it comes to actually practicing this on your own. So like, is there anything that you found to be useful, which you can share?
I will say it's the fact of being alone. It does, of course, it makes it more difficult. It makes it more difficult for a number of reasons. You don't have that social buffer to go back to. You don't have that mate with you, just to validate your humanity as you're going out, like making a tit of yourself on the first 3 approaches.
Yeah.
If you're with other people, just one other person, you just laugh it off. And I remember that, like, I mean, that's always been the case with like nightlife and stuff as well. Like, you approach a girl, if it didn't go bad or something funny happened, you just literally laugh it off with your mates. It doesn't even register. And if it goes well, it goes well. Either way, you kind of it's win-win. Whereas when you're doing this alone, of course, it's only human nature that, like, if things go badly, it is kind of like, oh well, I'm just here alone. You've got to have some resilience there.
Yeah.
But you can do it. You can get through it. What I found with my first, I'd say 3 sessions, I had such motivation. I was so determined to basically get to do the approaches that really nothing really would have stopped me, to be honest. Like, the level of determination was like, if I have to approach like all day, or if I have to stalk around the mall all day to do these approaches, to even it just it's happening one way or another, basically. So that was my attitude for the first 3. And then I think, to be honest, for the first 5, really. But I remember the 5th one, I started to feel like, man, I do really want this, but this is getting really hard to do this alone. It was almost like a miracle, to be honest. That session turned around because I just had a bad session where, like, it was between Christmas and the New Year. Actually, the streets were totally empty. I went to a mall, totally empty, and then I went to a second mall, and it was so packed. I was just kind of like, I'd gone from 0 to overwhelm, and I just couldn't approach. I was in that frustration mode where you want to pull the trigger, but you've gone into your head so much for, like, I couldn't do it. And then miraculously, like literally miraculously, a guy sat on a coffee table like next to me when I was getting a coffee, heard me sending a voice message in English. We started talking, and he basically was like, "Oh yeah, I really want to approach some girls here." Like, it was like a wingman from the heavens, essentially. So we didn't actually do a session or anything together, but it was just like that. Just having someone to talk to brought me back into being a normal person again. And then I could go in, I finished off the session, did an approach in the mall, got a number, went on to, like, back to another busy area of the city. And I think I got another number, did like a few more approaches, got another like really gorgeous girl's number at the end. So that was like my 5th session. And yeah, I think with the solo stuff, what I would say with it is doing, if you have any option to do at least part of your immersion with somebody else, I would strongly recommend doing that, even if it means traveling to a different city. And not necessarily everyone, but I don't see how, for example, I couldn't have gone. I was thinking, should I do a 12-week one? I just can't do another 6 weeks alone. I just can't do it. I've gone to my absolute maximum on what I've done so far as a soloist. So if you can, like every couple of weeks, meet up with some other guys and then maybe do a session on your own, that's going to break it up so much. You're going to appreciate having people with you so much. And then in terms of actually getting it done alone, I think it's how much. Honestly, it's just basically how much do you want it. If you've worked with Kristian, if you're in the group, like, you've got some skills, you've got guys in the group, like amazing guys in the group who, no matter how good you are at a general approach or what you've done in your life, this is a unique kind of emotional roller coaster you're going on. And so sometimes you just need to post in there and people give you some little tips and bits of advice. And it does help. It helps in a major way. So yeah, I think, to be honest, I think like joining the professionals, to be honest, is a good way to go. If you actually want to do this, you need to be with people who are going to be actually understand what you're doing, what you're going through, and are on the same journey.
Yeah, 100%. I always break it down into 3 phases: immersion, network, accountability. So first of all, you need the immersion phase. You need someone to just give you the playbook, accelerate the progress. Realize as well that even though, let's say that we're working together, realize as well that it's still you doing it. Like, even when you are out with a wing, right? It is still you doing the thing. It's this like weird psychological thing. Like, let's say that we're out together, and us being out together gives you the confidence to go and approach that girl who maybe you wouldn't have approached otherwise. It's still you doing it. Like, I don't have my hand up your ass, like being a ventriloquist speaking on
Yeah,
your.
of course.
It's still you doing it in the same way that maybe you can lift heavier weight when you're with a friend at the gym because he's screaming at you to get that last rep, but it's still you doing it. So I think that the psychological element's important, because when you realize that, oh, even though I don't have a wing, I can still do that thing. That's a massive like mental breakthrough.
For sure.
And then definitely the network side of things. I think having a network of like-minded guys, it holds you accountable as well. Like, you're talking about having that burning desire. I think it was Nietzsche who said, "He who has a strong enough why can bear any how." And I do think that's a thing that is important in this space. Like, day game is not for the faint-hearted, and you do really need to want it. And I think when you do have that strong why, it does become somewhat easier to do it on your own. How have you found then obviously you've been out in South America doing your thing. How have you found the actual dating side of things? So like the girls that you're meeting along the way, can you talk to us more about the actual dating side of things? Like how easy it's been to get these girls out on dates, cultivate relationships, etc.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, culture varies a lot from place to place, as we know. Um, if you, yeah, if you're living internationally, that's just it's a way bigger thing than people realize. Like it forms everything about the men and women. So for me, Latin America is it's a good spot. I've always liked Latin American girls. They're a nice mixture of they're sexy, they're sassy, but they are traditional as well. And so for me, that's a nice mixture. I like that. So in terms of actually meeting quality, I mean, um, for me, it's some of the best quality for just for what I like that I could possibly find. Really, like they fit with me. Just like actually enjoying a person's conversation. You know, like there's a lot of time. There's so many times in the past. I think back to my 20s and stuff, and we would literally just laugh it off with your mates. It's like the bullshit you listen to just because you're looking at a pair of tits is kind of incredible. You know, it's like you shouldn't really be talking to the girl, but you're just sexually attracted to them, and maybe you're in that starvation mode that most guys, if we've been honest, at some point we've been through. And it's like you're not enjoying the conversation, you're kind of humoring the person, and you're just wanting to just move forward, like physically. Yeah, that's not a good that's actually not a good strategy, just as an aside. Like, but anyway, here it's kind of like I've had so many great conversations, like people who just see the world the way that I see the world, essentially see what they want from their relationships fits with what I want. The person they want to be would collaborate and combine well with the person I want to be. So um yeah, for me it's a very good fit. Latin America is a very good fit. um and and then in terms of like the follow-up as well, because I speak Spanish, so it's like sometimes it's weird, but sometimes they don't even quite clock sometimes that like they clock it a bit later on. They're like, wait, I just spoke Spanish with that guy for like quite a long time. He's not from here. He's not even from Spain. And then sometimes they're a bit curious later on, like, wait, how did you learn so much? Like, it's sort of yeah, it's kind of like taken as a given now for me. But sometimes equally though, I do get like a good compliment, like your Spanish is really good. So that's kind of a bonus as well. Um, yeah, I'm in this gray zone between being a gringo and then not being a gringo. I'm not like a hardcore gringo guy, like in a Hawaiian shirt, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Uh,
met those guys. I met those guys in Rio, man. They were just like at the bar, sipping caipirinhas, like not really knowing where they were. And yeah, you're definitely not on that level, man.
exactly. So I'm in the gray zone. Well, I'm not a local
Yeah.
guy. I have maybe a little bit of a bit of both sides I might have absorbed over the years in a way. So I've spent actually tons of time around Latin American culture, like like an absurd amount of time. To the point when I was in the UK, honestly, there are years of my life, years on end, where I spoke Spanish every single day for years on end. So that I was like so immersed in it, even when I was in the UK. And even to the point, I almost migrated from hanging out with Spanish people to people from Latin America during that period. And even my Spanish accent started to migrate, to change up a little bit. So um, yeah, for me, I'm in this kind of gray zone, as I said. And to be honest, because I've been doing so much approach, it's like a weird phase you go into. Like I think that's just saying before, like I've been doing so much approach that like I can't even actually follow up with a lot of these girls that I actually really should be thinking about. Like, okay, I need to take her on a date and see what she's like and stuff.
Mm.
Because I've just been so focused on the approach for the last 6 weeks. Like I have had some dates and stuff like that, but actually, there's like so many that I've just kind of let the threads run dry on text and stuff and Instagram, because I've just been more focused on the approach. So like, I think that's a natural thing to go through. Now I'm at a phase where I'm like, I don't need to do another immersion right now anyway. I could do it at another point, but like right now, like I've done my work for a time period. Now, if I meet someone else, I can actually follow up. I can follow up on the previous girls that I've been meeting and stuff. So, um, yeah, that's kind of the other side to it, is, you know, the day twos, the dating and stuff like that. Not actually just only approaching, you know.
Yeah, I think it's good though. I think it's a smart move to prioritize one over the other, because otherwise you can get stuck in this weird limbo where you go hard with the approaching, you get the skill set, you're starting to get the skill set down, and then it's super easy to meet somebody and then cash out with that person before you've even reached your full potential. So yeah, look, I think having an expiry date, knowing that you're doing like a 12-week thing and then see what happens. I think that's smart. Um, do you think if there's someone listening to this and they're thinking about going to South America or anywhere, how important is the language barrier?
Mm. I would say a lot of them are quite keen to speak English, but it's not universal. I'd say probably a part of the world where it's very variable. Um, you want to have something in the locker, to be honest, for some basic conversations. Um, One of the best ways, if you are, let's say you go well with Christian, you start on your cold approach, and you come out to Latin America, is one of the best ways to improve your Spanish. Is, go meet some girls, get a girlfriend, date someone. You know, it's a nice way to improve. So these two things actually they actually pretty much go hand in hand. To be honest, there's most people who get really good at a language. It's like an insider thing. Most people who get really good, it's usually because they have a boyfriend or girlfriend. You know, the girls will get shacked up with a guy, and then a guy like gets a girlfriend or whatever, or a group of mates, or both.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's you don't need it, but it's definitely helpful. And then some places you got to be a bit careful as well. Like in for me in Brazil, there's a couple of times. This is a few years ago when I was in Rio. There was definitely a couple of times where they were talking about ripping me off in front of me in Portuguese, because I understood what they were saying. This is when I was getting a taxi with some Brazilians, and the taxi driver was basically saying, "I'm going to make him pay for it,"
Mhm.
because he's getting out before you guys. And I knew what he was doing, so I was like, "No, screw this guy! Like, I'll get out of the taxi." So little scams and things like that. If you've got a bit of language, that helps as well. You can avoid that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so speaking about the travel aspect, I think there were some things that you wanted to mention about travel and how having this skill set is beneficial for traveling. Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys who listen or follow this type of content and they have a desire for seeing more of the world. And for me, you're right. The two go hand in hand. Yeah, I see this as a skill that unlocks the world. Yeah, I think if you can give any guy a superpower, it would be being able to travel the world and communicate with other people in their native language. I do think it unlocks the world for you. So yeah, how if you want to share some thoughts on how this links to travel.
Yeah. So I mean, you've obviously, yeah. Even if you don't have the language skills, obviously, if you've got language skills, it does unlock things like a lot more. But even if you don't, or you've got some real basic ones, you can still go so like there's so much adventure for you to have. When I first started learning Portuguese, my Portuguese was absolutely terrible. This club I used to go to, or I started to go to in Lisbon, like the girls there would call me Tarzan because I would insist on talking to them in Portuguese, and it was terrible. And it was just like it was just a joke. But I found it funny, they found it funny, and like yeah, it was kind of it's kind of like endearing in a way from their point of view. and you always get a bit of a pass as a foreigner as well. Just in general, you can be a bit more risque. You can do things you might not do in your own country. You can say things you might not normally say. You get a bit of a pass. You're not a local, so you're a bit of an unknown entity to the people, both men and women. So that can be kind of interesting. As long as you're like obviously not a complete dickhead. You don't like you don't abuse it. You're just like being respectful. You can actually you can have so many adventures. And social skills / cold approach. I just see cold approach as like extreme social skills, to be honest. General social skills. If you're traveling the world, you're not going to go from like, if you're a computer programmer, let's say, and you have no social life at home in the UK or US, I would work on that for a while before you go out on your travels, because you're going to new places. You do need social skills. You need to be able to converse with people. You need to be happy. Okay, this thing is going on. Let me go and try that. Let me go and see that, a music thing or an event or what have you. You do need those social skills to actually get into the country and make the most of it. I think like back in the day, that was kind of a given. Like, no, there weren't. I think maybe there were fewer people who lacked the skills because it was just the way the world is, the way the world was. Nowadays, like, people can be a bit stunted in that area. So yeah, and then in terms of cold approach, like, you are like it's kind of like the highest level of social skills, in my opinion, to be honest. So if you could, I don't even know if skills is the right word, to be honest. That's the conclusion I'm starting to get to after all of this, is like, it's more about your own emotional state. After you've actually got a level of just competence, like you can have a conversation, you're kind of normal, you're well socialized, then you need to maybe give a bit of direction to the conversation, like if you're moving towards a number and stuff, and setting up a date, there's maybe some skill there. But actually, once you've established those things, it's mainly about your emotional state in terms of cold approach. That's my experience of it. So it's almost like, yeah, what do we even call that? Is it even a skill? It is, but it's like some internal thing that I don't know. It's almost like magic in a way. So yeah, I think they all fit together. And I mean, I can't even go into the number of adventures I've had, to be honest, with travel and social, being sociable with people and cold approach. It's insane, to be honest. Like, it really, like, my memoirs and stuff one day, like when I write it all down, it's like, it is literally some of the stuff I think about, I'm like, that's just kind of crazy when we did this in this place or that place. It's a good life, man. It's good memories. There's a lot of times though where it's really challenging and it's really difficult, and there are times when it's lonely as well. You pitch up in a new country where you don't fit in. It's a super antisocial place, and with the best will in the world, you're on your own and you're having a hard time integrating. That can be a lonely place. So I don't want to over romanticize it to people. There's ups, there's downs, there's challenges, there's amazing days, there's times where you feel a bit lonely. It's all part of the process.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I always just think of the alternative though. Like, my worst day on the road is still better than sat in an office cubicle in fucking Scunthorpe.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I think with all this stuff though, like, people talk about like, oh, the Matrix. I feel like the real Matrix is in your mind, right? And like, in your mind, you can either choose to create a hell or a paradise, and you're always sort of swapping one Matrix for the other. Yeah, it's like you might leave your safe your job, but like, you just go to like a faraway country. Everywhere has got its own problems. Like, there's problems everywhere. But how do you think you've actually developed as a person through this process?
Through the travel stuff or through the cold approach stuff?
I think both, because I think for you the two have been very closely linked over the past couple of months.
Yeah. for me, the travel stuff really, I mean, that dates back to being 15 years old, to be honest. I remember going on a school trip to Seville. I was very fortunate to have that opportunity, and I was totally blown away. I couldn't believe, I was like, this is a real place. Like, this Seville, by the way, it's a really good city. It's a really good city.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
Probably would be good to cold approach, actually. Good climate. I don't know about, I think attractive girls anyway. I don't know what the culture's like, but in that respect, but yeah. Anyway, so I had this opportunity at 15 years old, which was like completely changed my life, to be honest with you. Because after that, I was like, well, first of all, I'm damn well learning this language, because I want to come back to this country. And then I got an opportunity to work out in Spain when I think I was 22. So I got an opportunity to work there, went over to Madrid, was working there. A few years later, got an opportunity to work in France. So I'd already done just living in a country, working there early doors in my life. And there's a lot of development that comes with that, especially at a young age. There's so much like social development, pitching up in a new place, having to make new friends. I'm 22 years old. I'm still improving my Spanish. Basically the new kid on the block. Like, I'm trying to meet girls. I'm trying to meet friends. And like, we've got a guy in our group actually he's going to be about to go into exactly the same thing that I did at pretty much the same age as well. So like, it's such an exciting time in your life. Later on, obviously, became an online worker in my 30s, and then that for me was really the point. I was like, right, I can take this to a new level now. Like, there's more places I want to actually. For me, it's not just about seeing somewhere. It's like I'm actually like marinating in this place. Let me really absorb this place and see what it's got to offer. And in a way, if you stay in a place for long enough, it's going to change you in some way. Like, if you want it to change you, if you like it enough, there's an element of it that you're going to let into yourself. And that's one of the coolest things about travel. That you like a place and you stay there for a month or a couple of months or 3-4 months. You do kind of absorb it. It's kind of like it's an intentional thing that I've done anyway. And then, like, to be honest, there's other places which you go and you don't really like, and you just kind of you stay and you enjoy it for what it is. In a way, you kind of block it off a little bit though as well. It's hard to really explain that, but like, so I don't know, just the whole thing is just such a deep learning process for me anyway. For other people, there's some people who they talk very dismissively about travel and just say, oh, you just go to a youth hostel, or you just go in Airbnb, and you're just deluding yourself. And I think it's a very superficial and dim-witted view of what travel actually is. Like, it's a very deep thing to do if you're like sincerely, immersing yourself in it. So yeah, for me, just like the learning experience is like, it's just incredible. Like, last year, I traveled effectively from the westernmost point of Europe, which is Lisbon, to the easternmost point of Europe, which is Istanbul. The western part of Istanbul is still in Europe, and the eastern part is in Asia. So obviously, talk about Istanbul as a bridge. It's like, that is a crazy journey across the whole of like Europe. I didn't see every country on the way, but saw different places and so on. Made my way over there. Like, that's changed my perspective on the whole continent forever, because like, I've got more of a perspective on what it is as a continent now. So it's just such a good learning experience. And then to like the cold approach stuff, do you want me to talk about that as well? The cold approach side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's one. Again, the cultures. That's another one where culture, is a factor. You've lived out in Bucharest for a period of time. Like, I've been out there for a period of time. Bucharest, like the Slavic countries, are different in terms of their culture to Western Europe. They're very different. As is obviously Turkey. As an Islamic country, like an increasingly Islamic country as well. So each of those places has got its own culture. I think you can do this though literally anywhere, to be honest. Like, I've done cold approach I've done it in Turkey, like on the Islamic side of Istanbul. So Not to local girls though, to be fair, to girls who are tourists. But so yeah, you can do it anywhere. And I think most guys find I think most guys have got an idea of what their preference is. Like,
Mm.
I think they already kind of know, like, I like this type of girl. I like the Eastern European. I like the Russian type of girl. I like the Latin American type of girl. There's guys who like British girls. There's guys in our group who like digging British girls. They like it. They British girls are quite dynamic in a way. Like, there is. I can see. For me, it's obviously we grow up with it, right? But I can see someone else coming in and going, oh yeah, they're kind of cool. So, yeah, like you you can kind of your passport allows you to go, right, I'm going right to the honeypot now. I can actually find like my dream woman, which you may or may not be able to have in your own country. And cold approach definitely does add an element to your travels as well. You have even if it's not cold approach, like before I knew what cold approach was, like I was still dating when I was traveling. Some of my craziest experiences are like going on dates and just insane things happening when I've been like traveling to different places. So your personal life and your travels, they're all kind of linked in. And then yeah, like I think eventually this is what I was thinking about recently is I think eventually most travelers, I think most people are actually, they are on some level, they're looking for a home on some level. Like, yes, you want to travel around and be an explorer and all that type of thing, but you're not just going to want to be rootless your entire life until you're like 70, just going from one country to the next. You're going to have a breakdown if you do that for like 50 years. I think most people who are travelers, like, especially in this new generation of nomads, they're on the lookout to think about, okay, where could my home be? Like, if I'm not quite digging my home country for whatever reason, what would be another option? And I think that's true of me, and I think it's true of a lot of people actually. It's not just about being like a wild pirate just traveling the whole world. Like, yes, that's a part of it, but I think people actually are looking for a culture they can fit into.
And do you think you found that place?
Yeah, good question. I think so, yeah, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about more recently because obviously I'm 38 now. So I've still got a few more years on the road. I don't know how many more, but I'm not going to be 58 doing this. Let me put it that way. It just wouldn't be enjoyable, I don't think. So I'm not quite at a point where I'm set, but I've definitely got like I've got a few countries that I really enjoy the culture, and maybe there's some economic opportunities in some of them as well that I could see myself actually taking advantage of as well. So yeah, Latin America, Eastern Europe, to be honest, like Slavic countries. I think there's a lot going on there. I personally really like the culture there, even though like it's not sometimes the most sociable and stuff like that. There's just something about it. There's something in the air in that part of the world that
I know what you mean. I really like Eastern Europe. Whenever I'm there, I remember the first time I stepped onto Eastern European soil. There is something just different about it. I think it's like, for me, it harkens to an almost bygone era where there's traditional values. But I remember when I was in Romania and I lived in this apartment and it was near a park, and every day there was just children playing in the park. But it wasn't just children playing, it was like the grandparents were there with them and the parents, and it was a family unit. There was no iPad. It was just children playing, parents giving them love and attention, and raising them to be good children. The dad was there making sure that if they fell off the climbing frame, it was like, why did you fall off? And then the mum was there as well. I really like Eastern Europe. I think it's a great place to bring up a family. Yeah, I definitely, the UK wouldn't be somewhere that I would want to raise a family personally.
I agree completely. Yeah, I got a real soft spot for Bucharest as well. I think it's a good spot. There's so many places though. Like I was in Macedonia as well. That is like right off the map. I'm not even afraid of talking about it because I know people aren't actually going to go. They're not going to go there. To be honest with you,
Was that Skopje?
Skopje, yeah. They're not going to go, and if they do, they're not going to last that long. I don't think. But yeah, it's like how the UK probably was 50 years ago. I would guess. Obviously, there's also like there's the Orthodox stuff as well going on there. Like there's a religious element to that. It's the original form of Christianity, which I think it's just so traditional. Orthodoxy is just so traditional that it's maintained its influence in the society, which I don't know. With the way everything's got so crazy in the modern world, I think having some kind of religious background in your society, we've critiqued religion a lot and with good reason, but there's something there, like especially I felt like around Romania, around Macedonia, even Greece as well, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. I think for me, raising a family in the UK, I couldn't imagine doing it, to be honest with you. I just wouldn't feel comfortable on so many levels. So for me, it's really all about like some of these other territories. Yeah.
And you said before that like you've got like another 2 years left on the road, right? That's how you framed it. Do you feel as though that like that could go on forever though? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought about that because then I've gone, well, actually, I've got to, because then you start to actually do the month by month, right?
Yeah.
I'm going, right, where I am right now, I'm here till this day.
Mm.
And then you go, well, I want to go and visit my friend here. I want to go and visit this guy in Greece. I want to go and do this. And that's going to take me to this month. Then I want to go here. It's going to, and then you start to look at actually how that's actually going to pan out. And you go, I've already got 3 years travel planned, you
Yeah.
know, just on where I am right now. So yeah, I don't know, like I suppose the reason I say like I don't want to be doing this when I'm X years old, the reason I say that is because I've got much older friends than me who are in their 50s and one guy in his 70s, fantastic guys. And particularly like I mean both of them really, but the guys, and actually I've got a few guys who makes quite a few older friends like in their 50s, and I found it very useful to hang around with guys in that age group. So like younger guys, by the way, just as a fucking obvious tip, like don't just hang around people your own age. You know, like if you're younger, your biggest advantages are going to come through speaking to people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. If you're older, my age, I'm 38. It's brilliant for me to speak to guys in their 50s and 70s, but it's also brilliant for me to speak to guys in their 20s because they're coming through with some new perspectives and new ideas. So having that broad perspective on age group is like, yeah, it's so beneficial, man. It's so beneficial. But just to get back to the point is I have some of those friends who are older. I do look at their lives and I think I have so much respect for this guy because these were true pirates in the days before internet nomads. These were hardcore travelers, like, and they've got stories that like way crazier than mine. And this was like in the days where you'd have to go and get a job in Cuba. I've got a friend he like wangled himself a job in Cuba, wangled himself a job in Brazil in like the late 90s. This is completely off the map. So I've got so much respect for them, but I do look at them and go, I wouldn't want their life at their stage. I'd actually want something different to them. So that's why it does. In my mind, I go, at some point, there's an expiry. Yeah, I said 2 years. Is it not? Is it going to be 5? I don't know. That's the way I see things right now. But it's interesting because just one more thing. Like, there's like someone I just spoke to literally just yesterday who has got like he had children young, and so now he's approaching 30 with children. We're in obviously like totally different mindsets, and he's now moving to the States. And he was just kind of like, you always want what you don't have, if your life on the road, then you're going, oh, at some point I need to just settle down. If you're settled down, you're going, man, I wish I could go and do what Joseph's doing. He's having the greatest time. So it's just like a trick of the mind, really.
Yeah, you can find yourself on the hedonic treadmill, right? It's like I'll be happy once I've got this car, once I'm working this job, once I'm in this country. Um, yeah, I get that. I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said there's two things that make people miserable. It's not having what you want and it's getting what you want. I think that's the human condition, right? Always striving, wanting what we don't have, and then as soon as we get it, it becomes boring. The novelty, I think that's what it is. I think it's a novelty aspect.
Mm.
That novelty aspect is very alluring. What do you think the ideal scenario is for you then? Like, let's say you've had your exit, you're not doing your traveling anymore. What does the day to day perfect reality look like?
Yeah, if I get to that point, let's say if it's not that I'm not there yet, I still feel like I'm on this like it's like the 12 trials of Hercules, man. Like, you know, you've got to go and do all these conquests and all this type of stuff. I haven't finished that yet. Um but at a point when that kind of when I feel like deep in my soul, I'm done. Like that's it. Um or you know I'm going to establish a base. I think it will be family orientated, to be honest. Be continuing to work as hard as I can. It's actually very recently I've just started to get a bit more driven towards making more money, expanding, because like I'm fine for myself right now. I'm more than fine, but um yeah, I'm like, okay, maybe I should be thinking bigger. I should be thinking, instead of just being okay in my apartment, traveling around, doing my stuff, what about, you know, what about can I just hire a villa so I get my whole family to come out, or get the boys in the entourage to come out? You know, starting to think bigger. And it's very recently I've started to think like that. I think the cold approach somehow has created some kind of a shift in me in that respect this last 6 weeks, because it's kind of like cold approach, daytime cold approach on your own in the like Latin America, which is technically the developing world. Like you're out on a crazy limb. It's like that is a final frontier, really, in terms of like social life and in terms of like hedonism and so on. It is a final frontier, and you start to go, okay, could I be doing more? That's how I'm starting to think now. So you know, just because you start to think like that doesn't mean like the next day it's all going to fall into place. But it's like, okay, can I step it up even more in terms of what I'm doing? So yeah, and that would, you know, that's going to facilitate like an ideal situation. And for me, it definitely would be like a traditional family setup for sure. Like that is, um, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in that way. Or, otherwise, I'm just not going to do it. To be honest with you. I'm not really interested in this weird, like modern family stuff. I don't know. I don't want to be having kids here, there, and everywhere like some guys are doing, or just my ideal scenario would be a very traditional setup, um, and just yeah, like a happy home, basically, as far as that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, as a young guy growing up in the current climate that we live in, I think the idea of like having multiple children with multiple wives, it's become popular in the zeitgeist for many reasons. But I I think maybe I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people have been brainwashed by the brain dead, but whatever. I do believe in the idea of a traditional family, like one woman, have a family with that woman. I do think that the reason that guys like the idea of all this like multiple wives shit is basically because they're terrified of committing to one person, because then it means that they're gonna have to go deep with that person. You know, if you have multiple relationships, it's like you can have shallow relationships.
Mm.
Is my audio all right? It sounds a bit weird.
I can hear you okay. There was a bit of a disturbance there, but I can hear you okay. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. I think it's almost a coping strategy that guys are using these days. It's like, oh, let's just have multiple shallow relationships so we don't have to go all in with one person. But look, I like the idea of a traditional family, have a great woman and then you can bring great children into the world. Because the way that I would see it as well is like, I want a wife-worthy woman, because if I have a daughter, my daughter is going to reflect her characteristics. That's how I see it. So I don't want
And if you have
like,
the son, it's gonna rub.
huh?
Something's gonna rub off. If you have the son
Yeah.
with whether it's male or female, you want it to be the right woman. You got
Well,
a good
this
woman, she's also gonna help you to raise a good son. So either
and
way.
this and I think this is one of the major issues. And this is me, like, the past couple of months having these epiphanies. I think that's one of the major problems of, we'll call it, hookup culture, right? Like, when you're intimate with somebody, yeah, it's like your all of your energies and your soul, it's like aligning with that person. And if you get the wrong person pregnant, then the byproduct of that is you're bringing like a version of that person into the world. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah,
So
it's a nightmare, mate. It's a
yeah.
literal nightmare. I, I have a friend who said like one of my actual biggest nightmares is to get the wrong person, then have that scenario.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, in terms of, I don't know what the age group of like your viewers are, and what people are thinking. Let's just actually talk about reality, because most of the people who are in the space of, male influence and fitness influence and all these different things, most of them are effectively media companies. They're very good at generating views and interest and so on, but that actually has nothing to do with the real world. Like literally nothing. It's actually kind of disturbing to me as someone who does live in the real world to see there's people who actually kind of buy into this nonsense. There's a lot of people who do as well. You are not going to have multiple children with multiple different women and that have no friction. That is absolute delusion. I know guys who've got that situation. It's even if they have a lot of means and it's done in like almost the correct way, whereas like they got divorced and they went on to have a new family, it's messy. It's messy. You want to avoid that. You want your family with one woman. Let's be realistic, man. Like, even if you're a billionaire, it's still easier if you can do it that way. Okay. If you're actually thinking, you're delusional enough to think to yourself, you're gonna have like three like different, and it's all gonna work out in a chilled way. You're absolutely deluding yourself. And actually, I think most of it is just an excuse not to actually take any real action, because you can watch this it's like kind of a pornography, this lifestyle porn of, this guy's got whatever. Even if you're running multiple like relationships, I've done that before, like multiple girlfriends and stuff like that. It ends up in a fucking shit show. Those are my honestly like some of my biggest regrets. Probably honestly my biggest regrets. This is like in the past now, but yeah, where you've got like maybe a couple of actual girlfriends, they're both your girlfriend, or three, and it's not like a hookup. It's you're trying to do this thing right. That's loads of guys in my age group we're trying to do that, and it ends up as an absolute shit show. I can't even go into the details, but like I don't recommend it, and I sure as hell would not go any further than like I wouldn't go into having families and that type of thing. That's just absolute suicide, basically. So yes, things can fail. You can have a failed relationship after you've tried your best and it just things didn't work out for whatever reason. Then maybe you start another family. It's not ideal, but you should not be aiming for that. That's absolutely like psychotic, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think I think that the only other side to it though, in terms of like if we're talking truth, we're talking about how men actually are, how women actually are. We are designed to have like a main person. We are designed that way. We're built that way. If you have a family, you're gonna have that main person. We are also designed to be attracted to the female species in general, right? We are designed to be attracted to more than one woman. So that's going to be a natural conflict that you're going to come in. It's just going to happen. So it's going to be there. Just expect it in advance. Like, as far as I understand from guys who've had children, you're so focused on that that it's kind of like, it's not really a sacrifice. Like, oh, I can't go and chase this new beautiful girl in the sunshine. It's like, yeah, I've got 2 sons. Yeah, they need me. Like, they're way more important than this piece of beautiful ass. There's just no comparison. This is as far, I don't have children, so I can't really say from my experience, but from what people have told me is like, it's so demanding. You love your children so much that it's absurd to think you're going to go and throw that away just to like chase some girl, you know. But that's why you want options to begin with. You don't want to just be marrying the girl who would accept you, you know, and things go sideways. Like, I've seen it, like so many guys, because I've seen guys getting divorced and all this type of stuff. You want the options. You want to make a good, mature decision when you're ready.
I think that's the most important point. It's the healthiest relationships, from what I've gathered, that they're born from a place of abundance, right? It's like, out of all the options that I've got, I want you rather than I just want someone. And for me anyway, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted this skill set, because I didn't want to be clutching at straws and just taking whatever I can get. I wanted what I wanted rather than what I thought I could get, right? And that abundance, that not always having, but knowing you can have, even if you are in a relationship right now, you know at any point it could turn to dust and you'll be okay with that because you've got the skills to acquire. But I do think the majority of men today, they live in that perpetual state of scarcity.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for your future family. And it sounds quite meta, but I do see day game, cold approach. It's a skill that you're learning to benefit your family in the future. Because
Yeah.
if you don't know how to cultivate high quality options, you're not going to have a high quality family. And I think that's a major driving force of most men's decisions. We all want the best.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to get the best, it's like a mental thing that I always say is like, okay, what would my son think of me right now? I don't have a son, but if I did, I'm making decisions which he would be proud of, and I would be proud to make. So if I'm deciding to settle for some low quality woman just because she looked at me nice, it's like I don't want her to be the mother of my children. So
Yep.
yeah, I do think that this goes a lot deeper than just day game. It really is thinking long term. This is the skill that is going to define and decide what sort of family you're going to have. And yeah, I think it's crazy in that regard. But
What makes you attractive, essentially, in terms of what makes an attractive character in a man, is largely, would he be a good father? It's
yeah,
largely it. That's, in summary, masculinity is that. Would this guy be a good father? In summary, femininity is that. Would this girl be a good mother? Like, there's more to it than that, but it's basically an easy summary. So like, that's actually one to think about for guys as well. Like, if you're honest with yourself, would you be a good father? Like, would you be a father worthy of respect? Would you be a father that was able to lay down boundaries, be firm, but also be loving and caring and fun? You put those qualities together, pretty much most girls are going to fall in love with you. Just like, it just is what it is. And same on the female side. Do I want a girl who is going out drinking, smoking, doing class A drugs, who's irresponsible, who has an act? No, I don't. Damn, like, no way. I want to stay as far away from that as possible. It's repulsive. Why? I think on some level it's, imagine that as a mother. Imagine it. Like, and then the qualities we would go for, whatever they're going to be, it's going to be some variation, I think, on should be a good mother, or at the very least should be a good partner. But I think, yeah, motherhood and fatherhood, they are a good sort of, almost like the yardstick for masculinity and femininity.
yeah, I'm starting to see like more and more, like the deeper I go, not just in this journey, but life journey, like the more conversations I have, how brainwashed people, myself included, like how brainwashed we are in the West, like how promiscuity is championed so much from like the media that we consume, the music that we listen to. You know,
Yeah.
it's made out to be cool. It's made out to be cool that we're going around like losing our virginity at 12, 13 years old. You know, we're all sniffing lines and all this bullshit. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you don't do that in Britain young, you're not cool.
Mm.
And it's just this like degenerate society which is so harmful to creating strong families. And yeah, when you actually see it and when you understand the agenda behind why we're fed it, it's like, fuck. It's
Yeah.
actually mad. Like when you realize that, oh, we're just being brainwashed. Like they just want us to keep. They just want us to be like these like programmed slaves who just go around getting one another pregnant. So we, you know, go on the dole, get a mortgage, and just like are in debt for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad. There was something else. Oh, that was it. Yeah, you mentioned like asking that question, like, would I be a good father now? I remember getting a voice message from you, and it was more of like the ugly side of self-improvement. You remember when you
Yeah.
were saying how your apartment was flooded?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
Exactly.
super important for like guys listening to this. Like, if you want to just share that story, because I think it's useful.
Yeah. I want to come back to the society stuff. So, but I'll mention this first of all. Yeah, this is one of the things with travel. It's one of the things with operating your own service, your own business. There's so many things within your own having your own business. Everyone's like, yeah, I want my own business.
Right.
Okay. Like I've been self-employed for a long time. I've always pretty much most of my friends are self-employed or business owners. There are times, depending on what stage you're at, there are times where like you gotta just downright humiliate yourself, especially in the early days. Like I'm sure you probably had it when you were getting like very few views on your channel and stuff like this. So there's times with all these things that are so great on the back end where you've just got to eat shit, basically. That would be like in the kind of business area.
Mm-hmm.
Then in terms of like, travel, like um I mean, Jesus Christ, like there's just so many stories I've got of this type of thing where like, like I don't know, Portugal, yeah, you live in Lisbon, but you're scratching around because it's basically hard, it's so hard to get an apartment. Then I end up living with like 4 people. I don't know, it was just like I actually really enjoyed it, but it was not glamorous at all for that first period of time. Getting out to Latin America, Brazil, man, Jesus Christ, some of the stuff that was going on in Salvador, I still not really told. I've definitely not told my family about it, but like the amount of violence in that city is insane. I remember being like out on my balcony one night, just like I'm watching tracer rounds just go across the city because there's a police operation and this conflict, and you're like, it's no joke out there, man. Like that there's parts of Brazil which are just like absolutely insane. Obviously, I'm staying as far away from that as possible, but still, you still see some crazy stuff. Um, and then yeah, like getting out to I don't know, you going out to I had to leave Istanbul because the internet is so heavily censored there. It was bothering me with work and stuff like that. I had to cut short my trip. These different things that happen where I'm right now. On my first week there was this crazy rainfall, like totally tropical rainfall. I'm out in the streets. The main street is just like like almost like a foot deep in water just flowing along, and this is at the start of the flood. I'm going, what on earth is going on? The drainage isn't very good here. They don't get that much rainfall. uh, I videoed it a little bit, then get back to my apartment. I'm on the third floor. I'm like, okay, I'll be all right up here. There's a power cut. All I can see outside is rain and lightning. I literally was like, I can't do anything. I just fell asleep on this sofa for like 2 hours. I was knackered anyway. I wake up, the apartment is completely flooded. The whole apartment is completely flooded. Like, I open the door to go like see what's going on downstairs. Honestly, the film Jumanji, where there's just like water pouring through the house. It was literally like that. Because the way this building is constructed is it's an open, like it's like a square. So there's 4 walls, like, and in the middle is just like it's open plan. So like that was for ventilation, you know, just because it's so hot, right? But when you've got torrential rainfall, it's just all coming in. And even though I'm on the 3rd floor, it's flooding into my apartment, it's coming through the balcony, everything is completely flooded, completely fucked. I go down, thankfully, just by good fortune, I hadn't left any electrical equipment on the floor because that would have been a real problem. But yeah, I go downstairs, you know, like the staff, bless them, have got no clue what's going on because they're not even used to heavy rainfall, full stop. Never mind this. Like in England, you might have had more of a chance, but here they're just completely clueless. Can I get a brush? Yes, give me the brush. I've got to sweep all the water out of my apartment, just get everything clear to begin with. I've got work, like, not, this was on the Saturday, but I know I've got a lot of work on Monday. So I'm like, right, I need to make sure everything is charged up and stuff like this. I'm running low on telecommunications, my phone and stuff. Right, where can I go? There's a hotel in the center here that's got its own generator. So I go over there. It's like walking through the streets and everything, like the cagoule on, charge my phone in there, get a coffee, charge my phone in there. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's just thinking practically, okay, what do I do now? There's no electricity in my apartment. How do I cook my dinner? All this type of stuff. These are all the challenges, right? Of like when you do go to like crazy countries and stuff. And yeah, it's pretty much sink or swim. Like you have to deal with it. The craziest part though for me is this, and I don't know if I actually shared this with you. The craziest part is when everything is fucked, like the power's gone, it's flooded, I get a weird sense of peace because now I know what I have to do. I just have to do this for the next 2 hours. It's happened to me out here quite a few times when I was here previously as well, like power cuts and stuff like that. And I get this weird sense of peace where I'm like, okay, it's like my brain knows this is what I'm actually here for. I'm here to problem solve. Let's go do this. Like this is what I'm built for. Like, this is what you've been doing for 300,000 years. You know, it's not been like on social media and fucking working online, all this type of stuff. What you're really built for is problem solving in these kind of almost survival based situations. So I get like a weird sense of peace with it. I don't even know if that would make sense because until I experienced it, I would have had probably no reference point. I mean, maybe the only reference point would have been, you know, when you get snowed in and stuff, like when you're a kid, you're from the north as well, you've probably been snowed in a few times and you just got like, right, you know, you're out, like, okay, we need to just clear the drive or something, you know, like I remember having a bit of that type of feeling, but it wasn't quite the same because you don't get a power cut and stuff like that, but it was getting closer to the elements. There's something about that which brings something deeper out in you that it's probably been there dormant for your whole life.
Yeah, I wonder if it's got something to do with a combination of radical acceptance, so you know you're in this position now, but also a state of aliveness through being present. So, like, you know that your task for the next 2 hours is to sweep, and
Yeah.
it's like you've removed all of the options, like all of the distractions. There's no time to think about let's scroll or let's go out and call the, like you've got one task. It's almost like a prisoner if when he knows that he's got a life sentence. It's like straight acceptance for what is, and then this like blissful presentness for the task at hand. Maybe it's got something to do with that, just being completely present and alive.
I think it does. It does, but I honestly think it goes. There's something deeper about it, about the fact you're problem solving and you don't have electricity. There really is there's some, and I was speaking to someone out here who said, it was actually a girl I was on a date with. She said it's an interesting remark. She said, yeah, I had a great childhood because we had constant power cuts. So they were out in the streets playing, and you know they weren't on the screens and stuff like that. There is something very elemental about being without electricity. Oh, it's a fantastic thing, obviously, but like, yeah, it's just an interesting thing to revisit. You know, a lot of guys when they get really rich, like really rich, it's crazy what they do. they basically go periodically and live as a caveman for about 5 days. It's a crazy thing. And like, you think you got all that money, you could do anything. And what are you doing? You're going out into the woods with your mates, camping and like hunting. And they're like, you know, that's literally what all these guys do when they get money, on a big level. So I think there is some kind of a pull towards, the native man. That brings me perfectly back to what you were saying about society. So there's something I wanted to mention from my recent experiences, which I think you'll find interesting. And I think actually, like, your listeners, if they don't know this stuff already, they need to know, because what you are getting in our culture is like through media, through all these different sources, but it goes way further back. It goes right back to the 70s, I think. Like, anyway, it goes back to a long way. Is all these things that are kind of like corrupting you and infiltrating your mind and making you want to buy more, making you want to be more of a consumer, making you just weaker and weaker and weaker, to the point like where I am in Latin America, and it's the same in Eastern Europe. When I see, like, sometimes I'll see some like guys from London or something, sometimes the US, I find it a little bit embarrassing to even see them, to be honest. Like, just the way they're acting, just the way they carry themselves, it's just very unfortunate. It's not everyone, obviously, that we're here to buck that trend in the most aggressive way possible, but you do see it is a trend. And one of the things that is new, that, you know, it definitely didn't infect my generation to the extent it's infecting this new generation now, is this obsession with male looks. You know, we had David Beckham. We all wanted to copy David Beckham. He had the coolest hair and all this type of stuff. Yes, we were a little bit vain. I think young men are a little bit more vain. But in a way, that was a positive. Like, we thought we looked amazing. Like, we just copied Beckham's hair, you know, copy his shirt or whatever he had. And, like, we thought it was amazing. What you're getting now is, like, grown adult men who are supposedly heterosexual going online to review and critique another man's, like, facial and bodily structure, like, and they're getting millions of views, right? And then you're getting people commenting on different videos, oh, it's all right for you, you know, like, you're a good looking guy or whatever. Like, it's difficult for me really to truly express how far away those people are from anything that is even remotely deserving of female respect or attraction. You are if that's how you're thinking, you are so far from where you need to be. It's like, I can't even be nice to you, really. Like, if I could see you, I would just, like, throw fruit at you or something, just like, or a brick. But, you know, something to wake you up out of this absolute nonsense. Like, it's such bullshit. It is such absolute bullshit. Young guys, if this is starting to infect you, you need to just snap out of it. Like, basically, like, honestly, you probably need, like, someone like Kristian or me just to bully it out of you a little bit, because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all. This kind of, you know, being a crybaby about, oh, my nose, my face, I'm not tall and whatever. No, it's not acceptable. And let me contrast that mindset. I know it's not everyone, but I know it is something that's creeping in because of the internet. So, like, those people, if that's in your mind, you need to literally turn off the internet. Like, literally turn it off as much as you can. Just go to the real world. Reference the real world, not these freaks online who are like, they're such freaks, man. Like, these people doing this stuff and talking this way, they're complete freaks. Go to the real world. Go out to a bar. It's crazy. We're giving self-improvement advice, which is basically go to the pub and just, like, chill with normal people. Even if at first you can't interact, I like, you know, find some friends basically, and you actually see, oh, this isn't how real life works. Real life is not like, because I look like the fucking Giga Chad, I'm gonna have women jumping on me and I'm gonna be a billionaire. That's just not fucking real. Like, social skills, like, trumps pretty much everything. Like, literally everything. There's so many good-looking guys who either don't get anything or you get way below par because they don't have the social skills. They don't have that side of things figured out. Conversely, I'm going to tell you like another story about this. I told, I think, one on the very first stream we did about some friends I had, you know, who weren't the best looking guys, but just killers. But conversely, there's having that charisma, having those social skills, being confident, going for what you want, being the man who is like, this is the guy who's organizing the social stuff. This is the guy who's going after it in his job. That is just pulling, that's just pulling, and just being fun as well. Just being fun. It's not all this big competition beating our chest, like being fun. That's pulling in the positive energy. Of course, women want to be around that. So just to give you the story, I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but just to give you the story from the new year, I was with like basically a girl that I met here, been dating a little bit here. She invited me out to this town that I've not been to yet, just a coastal town, and I was like, yeah, 100%, I would love to come. Like, and so I was out there for 4 days, and I got my own Airbnb and stuff, so I wasn't like intruding, but she was staying with this like kind of her friends. And I would just go like every day over to their place, and just it was just a constant like people coming in and out. It's around that Christmas New Year period, and so I'm meeting all of these local guys, and like the main three guys I was around for the whole time. There's three like almost like physically like couldn't be more different, right? Same age, late 20s, early 30s. One of them is like this kind of like he looks like almost like a romance sort of, you know, like on the cover of a romance book. Like he's kind of looks like a boxer, but he's a bit of a pretty boy at the same time. So there's that guy. There's a guy who's a bit older, who's a doctor, and he probably was actually quite good looking, but he's obviously overworked. He's got 2 children. He looks knackered, but anyway. And then the third guy is a guy. I was like in my own mind, it's quite sad, but I was referring to him for the first day as Tweedledee, because like, he just was like he was portly, he was rotund, he was a chubby dude. He had a high pitched voice. Nothing about him was particularly you would think is this guy's going to be a seducer, right? So those are the 3 guys I'm hanging out with the whole time. All absolutely cool as fuck, amazing guys. And basically, like, they all essentially acted the same the whole time. Their actions, how they behaved, their mindset, although they looked a bit different or very different, they all behaved exactly the same. When we had like the nights in is basically park your car, open the boot, the speakers are in the boot, play the music, sit in a big circle, 10 chairs, bottle of rum, mixer. That's our night in. And the night in is basically the guys just telling stories and shouting at each other and just like telling these crazy stories of their lives, because it's Latin America. There's a lot of fucking crazy things happening to everyone like through their lives. And then, you know, they're shouting at each other. They've got these booming type of, you know, conversation. And then the girls all just kind of like, they can't really keep up with that type of power, but they like it, and they occasionally say things and they chime in and stuff like that. And like, you know, I would like, because I've been around quite a bit, I can at least engage a little bit. I'm not one of them, but I can at least engage a little bit. And like, the girls just all look at their guys as like with admiration, and he's a cool guy. He's a bit of a bastard. He's a bit of a dickhead, but he's my guy, like in a way. They just can't resist them effectively. If I could summarize a Latin American man, it's be like bastards that the women just can't resist. That's essentially what they are. Like, and anyway, so all these 3 guys all had absolutely mint girlfriends, like prime across the board, in my view, as far as I could see, like, and as far as if I showed you, like, you know, you go, yeah, man, like she looks nice, she's righteous, and she looks, and also the personality, the character, proper wife material women. And if anything, the guy who had the least looks, he probably had the best woman. Like, she was really fucking fit, had such a nice face. And she was like a really good cook in the house. She's cooking, really nice person. And I'm like, man, you know, if he was an English guy, fucking pussified by the values that have been pushed into him. If he was one of these guys just spending all his time on the internet moaning about how he was chubby or he wasn't good looking, he wouldn't have achieved any of the stuff he's achieved. And he's just like a normal guy from the third world who's got a dime girlfriend or fiance, who's got a good car, who's got a good job. He's like focused himself. He was kind of cool. Like, he was a bit dangerous. Like, he drove crazily fast, like insanely fast, and like he was very risque in his conversation. Like, he would say stuff to me, like he'd keep telling me to drink more rum because he was like, "Yeah, mate, you fuck better," and stuff like this. Like, he was just very funny, like risque. And but anyway, so he didn't give a fuck. Basically, this guy, not self-conscious one bit, did not give a fuck, and he had just as hot a girl essentially as the guy who was like the pretty boy. So I just thought it's just for me, it was such an illustration of, it's about behavior, man. More than a woman wants a nice looking guy or a rich guy or a fucking intelligent guy or a successful guy or this, that, and the other. More than anything, what they require is a man, first and foremost. Like, that's the first box you need to tick. Before you think about, am I good looking, am I well dressed, are you actually a fucking man? Like, do you actually embody anything to do with being a fucking man? And if you're spending your time fucking worrying about your nose, worrying about your jawline, worrying about your weight, all these different things, worrying about your height, you're literally presenting a woman with the psychology of a 12-year-old girl. That is literally the psychology you're presenting to them. How on earth can you seriously hope, even if you do by some fluke manage to get a girlfriend, are you going to actually be the man you want to be in that relationship? Are you actually going to have a family with that woman? Is she going to look at you and feel like, man, like, there's something about this guy, like, there's something about him, I need to just stay with him, I can't leave this guy? If you're presenting that type of insecurity to women, it's like, their job is to fucking be obsessed with their looks and be insecure about it. They seem to love it. Like, no matter how hot they are, they seem to love being insecure about their neck or some bullshit like that. That's their job. Like, they don't need us as well as men to be fucking going down that route. We should be the rugged, don't give a fuck. We're doing the man stuff over here. We've got hard shit to do. We're not going to also, on top of that, take on board like a million fucking insecurities from the internet. So that's a long rant, but it's really something that's been forming in my mind for a while, and I hope it's useful to people, because I honestly, if anyone can be snapped out of it, like, they need to be snapped out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely useful. I find it useful. I was trying to unpick things, like, as you were saying them, to basically give people a blueprint. I always want to try and give people like practical things that they can start doing. So apart from like basically just don't give a fuck, like, I think that's a good mentality to have. In showers, I think obviously you have to give a fuck about some things, otherwise you ain't going to be able to survive. But I think in a social setting, like that mantra of not giving a fuck, like, basically just being your own mental point of origin, isn't it? It's like, right, you're the main character in this story. Other people are the side parts. You can bring them in, you can have fun with them, but ultimately it's making sure that you're putting yourself first, maybe entertaining yourself in the process. What else then? What else do you think from those experiences?
Yeah. So just like with this looks thing, right? Just to bury it, what basically all you need to do is go to the gym. Number one, if you want to even focus on, you don't even have to be honest. But I personally actually prefer like to have at least a little bit in the locker, just like whatever. Go to the gym, find a look that works for you in terms of your clothing. That's it. You don't need to do anything else ever. That's literally it. You don't need to have facial surgery. You don't need to fucking get on steroids. You don't need to like obsess about anything, freaking hair transplant or anything like that. It's totally irrelevant. So just do the basics and then totally forget about it. That's all you've got to do, like in the looks department, and that's all really you should be doing. And then in terms of behavior, to analyze, like, let's say, how these guys in Latin America, specific things they do that are appealing. One is they are, especially, they're not afraid to be loud sometimes. That might not be you. Like, if you're really not, it's still probably worth maybe just trying it. You know, like, they're not afraid to be loud. There's something about the male booming voice which stuns out the brain of women and children because they don't have it. And anything that we have that they don't is essentially attractive to them. That's like, it's binary, right? Between what attracts me on a woman is all the things I don't have, effectively, you know, and vice versa. So that booming voice, that can be very cool. Being risque in your conversations, you know, saying to the girl, like, not just the girl you're trying to get with, but just people in general, saying risque things to them, you know, like saying something's a bit naughty, it's a bit sexual. You know, it's calibrated. You're not like some kind of like total freak. Like, it's got to be a little bit calibrated, but it's mainly just being a bit more risque in your conversation. I've seen you do it in your videos.
I actually, do you know what? I actually don't think you need to be that calibrated if you know what you're doing. Like, I think there's this almost like this like balanced off-centeredness that I think only comes through practice. I agree, like at the start, okay, I think calibrating after the fact is more important. It's very, if you're always trying to calibrate, you get stuck in this selection paralysis where you just get stuck in your head like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? It's always better to calibrate after the fact. So if you do come across as a dick, you can recover it if you want to. But I think too much emphasis gets placed on calibration. I think it can make guys get stuck in this mental limbo. Worst case scenario, you offend somebody. That's okay, because if you're the guy who offends people and isn't apologetic about it, people will end up loving you for it. Like you were saying, that these are these lovable bastards. I think it's far better to be one of those people than a shrinking violet who is scared of saying the wrong thing. And if they do say the wrong thing, they're apologetic about it. So I think it's okay to be uncalibrated as long as you kind of know what you're doing. But yeah, from what you're saying there, I do think a big part of this game is dumbing ourselves down a little bit more. I think especially in the West, we have a lot of like overthinkers, like thinking men who are just like these like logical bores. I've heard like you can do anything to a woman except bore her. And I think even if you are uncalibrated, you are going to be quite entertaining. And for what you said there, that seems to work.
Yeah, I would say that would be the main one, being socially. So that guy is like, he works hard, but then when he's in his social life, he's a bit risque. That's why party boys have always done well, because they drink a bit too much, a little bit crazy. But I don't know if that scene is even, I've kind of left that scene. I don't know if that scene is even still going on, but the party boy who's a bit crazy and wild, drank a bit too much. There's something about that guy that always draws people in, and especially women, but people in general. So you don't need to have the alcohol to replicate that. You can just kind of do it naturally.
Well,
and I
it's
think
kind of
it's a
like
good point about moving to calibrate, like not worrying about. I suppose I'm just thinking there's a few times where I've seen someone like who's just kind of said some really dumb stuff, and you got like the whole silence in the room. You're like, mate, well, okay, fair enough. Like, long term, he's going to calibrate from that. Like after the fact, to go, I can just rein it in like 5% if he's got a brain in his head, or even if not, he's still probably better off going on and being like that. You know, even if he makes people feel awkward sometimes, like it's all right. Don't be afraid to make people feel a bit awkward. Actually, that is a good one. Actually,
yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, look, I think when it comes to all like the social and the romantic environment, there really aren't. There's no rules to any of it. Like even if you do make people feel a bit uncomfortable, like I've been in situations before where someone's just said something that even made me cringe, and I was like, "Fuck, why did he say that?" But like, it's you remember it. Like I remember it, and I'm like, I wonder what that guy's doing now. So yeah, I think if you can, even if you just try it out for a night, let's say you book a trip. If you're in the UK, let's say you book a trip to London for the weekend, and you just go to like a bar, and you're never going to see any of the people there again. Why not try it? Why not try just be a little bit more provocative or a little bit more risque? It's like you become what you practice.
when you've got mates around you as well, and that's another thing about having a social group and a social life. When you've got mates around you, you've got total license to do that as well. So that guy was around his mates and stuff like that, so it just gives him even more license. And so that's something else to think about for guys. Is it's not just you as a solo person, like, how do I take this guy? There's a difference between, like, say, like a comedian on stage, he can say the most risque, crazy stuff that if he said it solo on a cold approach in a supermarket, like, people just lose a complete freak, because when he's on stage, he's got like the crazy amount of like people looking at him. He's got that social respect and everything. Okay, that's an extreme example, but if you're just with a few mates validating this guy's a cool guy, you know, like, you can get away with a lot more stuff. So that's you can do it on your own, and you should, but just like as a point of like, you know, just to give to you want to stack the deck in your favor, basically. Like, so if you're in a city where you do have friends and stuff like that, you know, go out with your mates to the bar. You know, I'm just thinking, is there anything else from those guys?
It just
You know,
reminds.
they're a little bit dangerous as well. That's another thing as well.
What do you mean by that?
This is like, God, man, this is like, it's getting a bit intellectual, but I'm just thinking, like, Nietzsche, man, he's got a lot of angles on this stuff, and he said he saw it back in the 1870s, which is he thought European, because he traveled all over Europe. He's the first kind of digital nomad. He's like, yeah, these Europeans were getting a little bit too soft and a bit too nice. This process is starting now. And he said, basically, he did his analysis. He's like, what is it in man that the woman at her absolute base is on like a totally subliminal level attracted to? And he said, it's the danger in man. It's the fact that man is actually a dangerous being. Like, you know, and I think there's something in that when I was thinking about these like guys, like, they are to some extent like all kind of dangerous in their different ways. So, and that may be like, I'm just thinking, if you're a professional, you're a banker or a lawyer, how can you realistically be some kind of dangerous like gangster or something? It's probably not going to quite work, but I don't think it would express itself in quite the same way. It's like, it's just there's just a male energy which is not that female energy. Like, women can have a little bit of it, but I think men, we just have it in like absolute abundance. You know, like, and you even see it with teenage boys. They're doing these dangerous kind of fucking things. Yeah, that was something that you feel out here in Latin America is more. It's like the guys are actually dangerous on some level, and doesn't mean they're bad guys. They can be cool guys as well, but there's something there. And man, when I see like the Europeans around here, sometimes I see them walking around, and it's quite sad to say, but some of the boys from Northern Europe now, the fucking Danes and the Swedish, how over socialized they seem to have become. Like, it's literally like watching a little 12-year-old boy walking around, and sometimes they're built like a big Viking still, but they just literally look, you can see it in their eyes. And then you have these bolshy local guys just walking around like they're running things. And it's like, it's literally like you're looking at like a little poodle who has been groomed and like catered for and has been like over socialized with his like, you know, over fucking, you know, I don't know, nurturing owners or something. And then you put that in a room and you've just got a jackal that's just come along from the like savannah. It's just like never been socialized essentially. And it's like, there's a crazy, when you see it like side by side, there's like a crazy difference between the two. I like, yeah, I don't know. So embracing a bit more. I don't think as Europeans we should just throw everything out, but I think we need to just embrace a bit more of the wild side within us. Whatever, like, that's why things like martial arts and stuff like that, I do think they are quite good for people, or whatever it is, like crazy, I don't know, crazy things, like, I don't know, yeah, paragliding or something. I can't really think what it is. It's hard to fully explain what I'm trying to actually express here.
Yeah,
I
I think Jordan Peterson talks about how men should have a capacity for violence, essentially. So having that capacity for violence, and then maybe finding pursuits which allow you to channel that. So it might be a combat sport, it might be playing rugby, it might be doing sprints, it might be climbing a mountain and screaming to the top of your lungs and then never telling anybody about it. But yeah, I think having that capacity for violence, but it's almost like I feel like we've all got a tiger inside of us. Like we've got a tiger inside of us, and rather than just like releasing it, it's like you want to release it, but like hold it on a leash. So it's like you could release it fully, but you've got it under control. But yeah, I do think like becoming dangerous and that danger element. I think when we think of danger, it's like it has negative connotations, but it's more of a penetrative energy from what you've described. It's ability to penetrate the world, not be shackled by anything in particular, but to be free in essence. So I think that essence of freedom, I think, underpins everything that these guys were doing. They were just being their full, unfiltered selves. They weren't really giving too much of a fuck, and then they had the camaraderie as well to know that the other guys had their back. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that one story alone essentially elucidates what's lacking from the majority of men today. And even for me, when you were narrating the story, I'm like, yeah, I've 1,000,000% got work to do. Like, I think if you put like the best British guys with these South American guys, I think they'd wipe the floor with us. I'm a believer that like, even though these guys, they may have it like naturally inside of them, I believe that what one person can do, like the behavior can be learned. Like if it is a behavior, then it's something that's been conditioned and cultivated over time. So yeah, I think that having the exposure that you've had to this culture, you'll learn through osmosis as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking back to Tweedledee, like my friend. As I say, like he was a very sociable, nice guy. He drove at like 200 miles an hour, and he had a 9mm in his boot. So like, he was, you know what I mean? So there's the other side to that guy, and like, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've been doing like on just over the years. There's not the softly stuff. It's not like going and meditating in a cave and that type of thing. I've done some of that, but like I think more recently, like in more recent years, it's been almost, to be honest, like getting back to my roots, almost as like I was like a teenage boy. Like I liked very boisterous things back then, and obviously you go down the professional route, and that can sort of be sanded out of you a little bit. You get a bit too refined. So for me, a lot of it's been going back to physicality and different stuff. Like I'm not going to go into it on this stream, but like some of the stuff, like I was training and different things in like Central Europe and Eastern Europe and stuff. Like I would definitely recommend it to people, but I think you've got to almost be on a certain level before you can even take that step. I don't think that's level one, to be honest. I think that's like get things going on, and then you go, right, how do I actually really get to like the next level that I want to actually be at, where I'm more fully well realized, well rounded. And just to not be all doom and gloom, what the European guys have that in our DNA, like for sure. Like it goes deep into the DNA, so it's there, it's all there. It's just ready to be activated. It needs to be developed. But on the other side as well, you also have like maybe a bit more of a propensity towards like towards the mind, towards things of the mind. It's not to say these guys don't have a mind, because they do, but it's like we maybe have some advantages in some ways over them, in some ways, just in terms of like I suppose just kind of like thinking forward, planning a little bit more, I suppose. All these guys were children quite young and just kind of crazy stuff, but they're very in touch with their instincts, which is a good thing. And maybe we've been separated from them a little bit too much. But yeah, I think it's all there, like you said, it's all there to be kind of had, to be honest with you.
I do think, look, I think for most of us who learn this stuff, most of the people listening, even for us too as well, I do think it's a process of unlearning. Yeah, like we've been so socially conditioned, and if you don't think you're socially conditioned, you're socially conditioned to think that. Like we are brainwashed as soon as we're born. We've been fed into a system which wants us to think in certain ways, and I think Yeah, you're right. There's levels to this, and that's what I've noticed for me. Like at the start, it was I want to learn day game. Now I'm looking more into, huh? How am I being brainwashed? Like, what agendas are being pushed onto me? Like, why do I think the thoughts that I have? And like, I think any of these sort of like counterculture movements, I see day game as like counterculture in a way. Society doesn't want you to learn day game. It wants you
Yeah.
to it wants you to swipe your life away because
Mhm.
you're more programmable if you're just Netflix, Deliveroo, Tinder. You're a slave if you're on the screen. So day game is definitely counterculture. And I think when you go down the rabbit hole of counterculture, you realize what's actually going on in the world, and it becomes very interesting. But yeah, I think what do you think level one is, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, level one. Good point. So this is kind of what I was thinking about this the other day because I'm like, this is not to be arrogant, but like I'm so so far down a path
Mm,
that um some of the stuff like it would be a little bit difficult. There's some of my friends, for example, I have friends who basically like married into like Russian families and stuff like that, and they've really gone in deeply into Russian culture, and I
mm,
can see the change in them. And they've gone more down a business route than a travel route. But I can have these kind of conversations with them, and I can see the development in them. And there's different, you have different kind of people who've gone broken away a little bit. But other people, if honestly, like if you've never considered some of this stuff, I would definitely invite you to consider that you may have been brainwashed just to at least a decent extent out of your manhood, and
mm.
all of these masculinity track like fucking channels and all this stuff. It's honestly it's fucking laughable, man.
It
When you
is.
actually just around like normal dudes, like I think I had a lot of it through sport when I was younger. I had like very, very severe sports teachers, like and like all this intense training and stuff. My form teacher was he was in the military, like so. I had very, very fortunate like the role models that I saw. I think, but yeah, like let's say you don't have any of that. All your teachers are just like girls, or just these kind of whatever guys are teaching these days in the system. Um, and you don't have any of these types of role models, you're looking online and all this type of stuff. All of that is just fucking you up into oblivion. You need to really jettison all of that stuff. Just basically go back to the absolute basics from the start of time. You know, I think men do generally need some kind of a physical outlet, some physical prowess that they're building. Um, Unless you're like incredibly musically talented or some incredible artist, I'll give those guys a pass. Like maybe, but if you're just like a normal guy, you need some kind of physicality going on. Whatever that is, you need something there. Um, and then it's all the timeless basics. Like have some drive, have some purpose, moving towards what you want to do in your life. Even if that's not your dream fantasy job, you need something going on
Mm.
as a young guy. And then as it comes to like social life, you want to be building a fun, enjoyable social life. Just these basic pillars of life in real life, not online, not on Reddit, not on Instagram. It needs to be real with real people. If you see a cool guy in real life who you think actually this guy's all right, and he's actually all right with you, cultivate that friendship with that person. Be a decent, all right mate to him. It's like you know it's just basic things, isn't it? Like, make a suggestion about something if you've got some knowledge that person could use, whatever the case is. Like, cultivate that real life, in person type of friendship. It's crazy that this stuff is like needs to be actually spoken about, but it actually kind of does, to be honest with you. Just
Mm.
getting back to basics, and that is to me that's level one. That's just level one. That's before you've even done any approach. A bit of physicality, some kind of professional work thing, and then real friends, a real social life. That's level one. That's not approaching. That's not getting a girlfriend. That's just basic level one. And then, you can be approaching in the meantime, but like, I think those are fundamental because otherwise you don't have anything to bring a girlfriend into anyway. So you're just a kind of weird, like, guy who only does cold approach to try to make up for everything else that is lacking.
And is terrible at it because, yeah, look, for me, stage one is become necessary. That's what you need. The world doesn't care about you unless you're bringing value to the world. And it's the same with women as well. Like I heard a really good point from a guy who used to mentor me, and he basically summarized the whole like red pill, but in like a very intelligent way. And he basically said that, listen, no woman is gonna love you unconditionally like your mother. And women are only ever gonna love you because of the value that you provide. And I completely agree with that. I don't believe in like the Disneyfication, the happily ever after. Oh my God, he eats the same cereal as me. We're soulmates. No, that doesn't work. I think men are way more romanticized than women are.
Yeah.
It's about becoming necessary. Yeah, like becoming necessary, like actually providing value to people's lives. If you know a lot about fitness and you're at the gym and you see someone else has got terrible form, just go over to that person, be like, bro, listen, you're gonna hurt your back. I used to do it that way. I now do it this way. Introduce yourself, and he's going to be grateful. It's like the law of reciprocity. If you do something good for someone else, they'll appreciate it. They'll want to return the favor. People skip this step. Everyone just wants to take things. I get emails from guys, Kristian, I've seen your stuff. I want to work. I want to work for you. No, you want to work for me because you've got no fucking money and no direction. What value? What value are you giving to me?
Yeah.
Nothing. So people don't understand this. They just want to take. Oh, I'm terrible at cold approach. Okay, how necessary are you right now? You're not doing anything. You sat in your mum's basement swiping your life away, claiming you're
Yeah.
depressed. You're depressed because you're not necessary. Become necessary. The world becomes a lot easier. How do you
Yeah.
become necessary? Find what you're good at and help people become better at it themselves. It's very simple.
Even your social life, though, it's the bar is so low to get a decent social life. That's more like a, for your profession and actually being, well in the world. Just for your social life, you don't even need to really become necessary. You just need to be an all right guy who can have a conversation, who's got some common interest with other people, whether that's in your dance thing, that's at your gym, that's at your boxing, that's at your chess club, whatever it is. So the bar to actually get a social life is so low. It's incredible to me that like people are not even like I don't make the minimal amount of effort to do that. Because I've done it in different countries where I don't really have anything in common sometimes with people. And I was thinking about it yesterday. Like, one of the things about this travel lifestyle that is it's brilliant, but it's also a little bit sad is when you have these friends from all over the world and it becomes difficult to see them like and catch up with them and people you know like if I can go somewhere in a month and I can make a few friends here and there and it ends up being like a positive thing. If you're living in a city full time, there's people around you all the time, there's common interests, there's common locations, you should be able to build up a friendship group. And that feeds into cold approach. Like your social life feeds into your cold approach and even your work a little bit as well. You can't neglect your social life. Like it's such an error. And you're most leveraged on your cold approach, not when you're approaching. Although like you can do fucking amazing things in approach, but where you like are the true Don basically is where you know you go to you could go to a party or something and you're going to have an energy about you because you've done 50 approaches in the last month. It's going to be easy for you to manage a situation. It's probably going to be almost like too easy in a way, or you're at least, even if you are still a bit nervous, you can go, oh well, this is just like a session. So you're going to be so leveraged in your social life from doing cold approach, and equally your social life is going to feed back into the cold approach. So when I've been hanging around with these guys out here over the New Year period for 4 days, just constant socializing, new people coming in and out all the time, talking to people, just constantly. And I went out the next week to approach. I think I had a couple of days off because I'm a person who does actually need to recharge. Not everyone does, but like if you know that about yourself, that's what I'm learning about myself is like when you need to recharge, don't fight it. Like if you've done a big session, and you actually just feel neurologically exhausted, like not like muscular, but just like you need to recharge, just recharge for a few days. So that's what I did, recharge, and then I'm back out on the Thursday. And like, my approach was like good, man, like really fucking good. Like just 2 approaches. The second one, a girl in a cafe. She sat in a cafe, and I just like, boom, straight in, absolutely like so fucking hot. She was gorgeous, and she wasn't warmed up socially to begin with. Like she was struggling. So I'm just like staying in. I even said, I'm like, you were right. You look kind of stressed. And it just, anyway, but she was fine with it. But I just remember thinking, I was like, man, I was on point today. Just, there was no warm up. I was just on point. Why? Because I just spent 4 days with these absolute dons out here. And that's just all rubbing off on me, and it's now taking me into my next kind of approach. So your social life is going to have such a benefit, like, to you. And the better people you can be around, it's just going to rub off on you, to be honest. That could be an in for some guys as well, like into a good social group. Like, who doesn't want a good wingman? What guys on a night out don't want a good wingman? Everyone does. Like, I used to go out with, like, when I was in nightlife, there was one guy I would go out with who was a borderline lunatic, like, but he was from Latin America, and like everyone else just thought he was crazy. But why did I always liked him, but why really did I always invite him out? I'm like, he's an amazing wing. Like, he's just like a nuclear bomb. He will just go into anything, just like obliterate the whole scene, and then we can just come in, like, So yeah, if you are doing approach, get together with a few boys, or like if there's groups you want to get into, if you're the guy who's a bit of an, like, he knows how to talk to girls, especially if you're younger, you're instantly one of the cool guys, in my view anyway. Like, that's when I was going around, like, you'd always have an eye out for that. And also, on the other hand as well, guys who can't talk to girls, if you're in a group with guys and stuff, and it's in your, you're in going around nightlife and everything, you're going to get rid of them. You can't have them out. They're a liability.
So true.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. You're weird, man. Like, you're freaking the girls out. Sorry, we have to cut you out. And that's even with people you've known for a long time. But it's like, even people you try and take aside and explain to them to try to improve them, and they don't listen. Sorry, dude, you're gone. And so, yeah, you want to be an asset.
That's it, 100%. And it's the same way that you're right. It's like having a pollutant. It's like having a pollutant in your having a pollutant in your energy. You just need to remove that before it pollutes the rest of the tribe. Look, even if that means getting rid of everybody apart from your one best wingman, then so be it. Because it's like having a child. Like, you have to babysit this person, and if they're creeping the girls out, fucking hell, yeah, that's a red flag. But look, if you can learn this skill set and then you can teach it to other people, and then people perceive the value in that, like, yeah, you've got a skill set for life there. Everyone wants to be around people who are good at this stuff. Good. Any closing thoughts before we say au revoir?
Yeah, I think that was it, really. I'm just thinking, is there anything from the immersion, the 6-week immersion, that I would take away?
You were gonna put it this way: if you were to repeat that exact process that you've done, what would you do differently, if anything?
Yeah, I'm actually, you know what, I'm kind of fairly proud of what I did, to be honest with you, because there's not a lot I would change. Like, I burnt myself to an absolute, like, crisp doing this. Like, it was not easy on a lot of those days. So there's not a lot I would change. If I could have a wing, yes, I would love to have a wing. I don't have one, so it is what it is. So that's probably something like. So I think going forward now, like, my takeaways now is big sessions where I go out and do a massive approach day. That's going to be few and far between going forward. That might be when I've got a wing, meet up with a wing, we go and do something, or maybe I just do an approach day, a kind of challenge, like once every couple of months or something, when I really feel like that real itch, like I need to go and do it today. But doing an immersion like this, no, I don't need to even do that anymore. to be honest. Like now going forward, what's going to be effective in my life is all these little maintenance sessions that I did between the big days. That's actually when I've met the quality. For the most part, that the best girls I've met have been just like on a Tuesday night. I just do one approach, have a long conversation with her, and then get to know her. So I can just continue to do that. And yeah, I just did that again last night. Like just went out, just did one approach. This was something as well that I just literally just worked in yesterday, was talking to a girl on the first approach you do, talking to them like already slept with them. It's weird, but like there's like a crazy level of like familiarity and chilledness, and just replicating that. In fact, yesterday it was so good. The open was so good because I had that in my mind that after about 6 or 7 seconds, it weirded me out. And then I was like, my brain was like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? And then I actually became a little bit nervous, and then she became nervous as well. So it's this weird fucking Tai Chi shit that's going on. So yeah, that's something going forward for me. Is just like short. It's not even a session anymore. It's just like if I want to go out on a Tuesday, I'll do half an hour. I'll do an approach. If I want to go on a Saturday, I can do the same. I don't actually need to go out and do these massive sessions. And now I can actually like have the luxury to have the time to actually follow up and actually be meeting more of them. Because I've been getting all these numbers, all these Instagrams, and I've barely been following up with them because I've been focused on the next approach session. Now I can actually enjoy, the fruits. So yeah, that's like the next phase. I do think there's maybe another phase for me to get to in terms of and this, to be honest, some of this is even like a logistical question as well. Is to be around these absolute like stunning babes, like really high level girls on a consistent basis. Just to have that experience. I've probably had it a bit in nightlife. I've not had it in day game yet though, where it's constant like nines, like constantly all the time. So that will be an area that I could potentially like explore more, like where it's just that consistent like high quality. How I even would generate that, I'm not sure. I do have one question for you actually. This was based on last night.
Yeah.
And this is something, it's a pattern I've noticed quite a lot, like on approach, like quite often I can often like the initial, let's say 5 seconds can be quite strong, like I can get myself to go over, hey, what's up, or I like this, something. Usually, and that goes well, there's usually like a transitional period of like say 45 seconds where before it becomes a conversation where you're going to continue to have a conversation with them, and it's after the open, there's this period where it can start to get a little bit clunky and awkward. And I'd like to have something in my locker that I could sort of go, I don't know, something to phase that intermediate phase between the hello, you look nice, or this or that, and when you're actually into a conversation. I don't know if you know what you must know.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've always found the best thing is to talk about yourself in that interlude period. So you are the topic in that transition phase. So like I've gone over to you. I'm like, excuse me, hi. Do you speak English? Amazing. I just wanted to say you look amazing. Right, that bit's done now. And after I've said that, and the reason why I'm going to tell a little story about myself is because I want to gauge her reaction and receptivity to me. So, hi, you look amazing. Yeah, it was mad actually. I was on my way to go buy a new pair of jeans from Zara because I don't know how it happened, but I managed to rip one in the crotch area. My mum said it's because I've got like a little bit too fat over Christmas. What are you doing today? And just like planting a story about what you're doing today, it makes you appear like you are a human being. Oh, this is a guy who has a life and he does things. I'm into this. So it basically is just used as a bridge. It's used as a bridge into the conversation. But you're by telling a story, just a little story about yourself, like what you're doing today, you're demonstrating that you're a guy who's got a life. And it's almost like giving her a glimpse into your reality and your personality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's. I mean, one of the bridges I've been trying out here is like often girls will be, they're wearing like quite cool, like really nice clothes and stuff, but it's just way too hot. So my angle has been like, "Are you not hot?" And then we start talking about that a little bit. That's been my bridge, like been a go-to bridge. But yeah, just referring back to myself, it's literally just the bridge.
It's
That's
just a
all.
great.
Yeah.
The beauty of cold approach is none of it actually needs to make any sense. Like none of it needs to make sense. Very rarely it actually does. So like I open girls in London with "Do you speak English?" It's just a stupid thing to say. Everyone's always like, "Why do you say it?" It doesn't matter. I'm
Yeah.
basically just saying something. So I could be like, "Oh, do you speak Swahili?" She's like, "No, great, me neither." Excuse me, do you speak French? No, I don't. I speak English. Great, I speak it. Like it doesn't matter what you're saying. It just matters that you're actually saying something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've always found just telling a little story about myself, it just helps to it basically sellotapes the conversation together.
Yeah, I think so much of it is like that's for when one other thing which I think will be useful for people. This more technical type of stuff, that's for kind of when you're in the warm up phase almost, or let's say I've actually been very effective when I'm just going out for 30 minutes doing one approach. So
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about hitting the momentum and hitting like God mode, Titan mode, all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a real thing when you're in a big session. But you don't need to do that to be effective. You can actually be highly effective. And it's almost surprising in a way because you're like, I felt amazing on this approach and it was the best approach of all time. And then on this approach, I felt a bit shit and nervous. But actually, the girl it was really quite intimate. We're going to meet up. So you don't need, you think you do, you think you need to be in this grandiose mode, but
Yeah.
actually you don't. And I found actually I'm really quite effective on just one approach, boom, boom, boom. So that's those when you're not quite warm and stuff. That's when it is nice to have a few little techniques in the locker where, like I always go for like simple compliments just based on, clothing usually. It's like it's suggestive enough, but it's not too overboard where it's like, you can do that. I know guys who do that. For me, that's kind of that's what I've kind of been working with. Um, and then just having a little bit of a technique then to get into the conversation. And just to add to this as well, like there's a few girls that I've been actually, in fact, almost the girls I've actually been seeing since I've started doing this, like the last 6 7 months. The girls I've actually ended up seeing have said to me like they were like, I liked you and stuff like that. I could tell you were a bit nervous when you were talking to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making out that I am some guy who walks in here as like, just ice cold and just an assassin. No, sometimes I'm nervous as well. Um, and in fact, a lot of the time, but it doesn't matter. The girls are still looking for guys. They're still open to being approached. They get it. Like you've just gone up to them apropos of nothing. They can reflect that as my beauty is making this guy on edge. They've probably had that a million times in their life. If they're an attractive woman, they know guys are going to get weird around them sometimes. It's all right. You don't have to be perfect. For me, that's a good realization to have as well. Is like some girls where it's almost veered off, but I've kept it on. They can end up coming around, and you end up really liking them, and they end up really liking you. So it's just the way you start, and I think if a girl is very harsh on a guy who's cold approaching and is just totally unforgiving, if he's got an overall decent approach, it's a little bit, it's not the greatest look on her, to be honest with you. They can do whatever they want, but it's like, you got to have a bit of social intelligence, like, as a girl, like as well, there should be they should give you maybe a 10% leeway, to be honest with you. They don't always, but like, they just give you that 10% where this guy doesn't have to be perfect. He can be a bit nervous. He can say something a bit wonky, like whatever. You can still get results with a lot of girls.
Yeah, you can. I think that's the biggest thing that castrates guys with their confidence is because they think they need to be the personification of perfection. And I've had so many conversations where basically I was going out, I really wanted to be validated, and I thought that the better my conversations were, the better my results would be. It actually doesn't work like that. Oftentimes, the girls, like the girls that you end up seeing again, they're the car crash conversations, a sweaty conversation after you finish at the gym where you took about 30 seconds to go in there because you're like, oh, I'm not in my best state right now. There is no perfect state. There really isn't. And when you do come across as a little bit nervous, a little bit unscripted, you present yourself as a human, and really,
Yeah.
I think what's happening is you're projecting your proclivity as a protector, meaning she can see you're nervous. Therefore, you're a man who acts in spite of fear. What a great fucking father you're going to be. Like,
Mm.
imagine how you're going to bring your son up. Listen, whenever you're scared, that's fine, but you can still take action despite being scared. And I think there's this unspoken humanness. There's authenticity in that sense of attraction because she might be bricking it as well, and then the two of you can connect like over your humanness. Because I think the guys who want to be perfect, that mask is going to slip eventually. So she may as well see the real you at the start, and then
Yeah.
she can make a more informed decision.
It's realistic as well, and it's up and down, right? There are times when you go out and you are completely chill and it's great. But let's say you've had a long day. In my case, I drink a lot of coffee in the day, and it's not good for approach, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because by the time I go out at night, I can start a conversation, yeah, but I'm just a little bit, I can feel the edginess in my body. I've noticed the difference when I've had caffeine on approaches compared to when I haven't. But anyway, it is what it is. So I might have a bit of that jitteriness. It makes it a bit realistic sometimes, like he's just a normal guy. It's just a realistic scenario. You know, it's a bit exciting for them as well. Other times, yeah, you are Mr. Smooth. It's you're in that great state, perfect. But you have to be willing just to go in like it's like in football. Like you got to just score some ugly goals sometimes. You've just got to score an ugly goal, get the ball in the back of the net, and then you win the game. You move on to the next game. You score a beautiful goal. That's kind of what you got to do a lot of the time. So I think that'd be helpful for guys as well. I've done so many approaches recently, like it's just so many, and of the ones where I'm like, that was perfect. I was in state like to the nth degree. If I've done, I don't know, 70, 80 approaches, maybe 5 have been in that state, and 65 have been like in a way less suboptimal state. Or to be honest, I've probably even done more approaches than that, but the majority, the 80, 90% are not in that perfect flow state. And guess what? You can still get results in those average or shit approaches anyway. So that's something I think is worth knowing for guys, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that removes the barrier for entry in that case. Like, if you have got at the base level the things that we were speaking about, like if you have got, if you've got some friends, you've got a reason for being, you're in decent shape, and you're not just swiping your life away, then remove the expectation of yourself to be perfect. Like, as long as you're genuinely just going in there with the mindset of like, worst case scenario, she feels good and I feel good for doing it. Like, you really don't have anything to lose. You don't. Like, it should cold approach. It's basically like capitalism. It should be a win-win for
Yeah.
everybody involved. You leave feeling great. She leaves feeling great. So yeah, as long as you've got the base level stuff, you've got a decent bit of social intelligence to you, you'll be fine. Most of the approaches that you're going to do, especially at the start, they are going to be pretty shit. A lot of the approaches that I do are pretty shit, but it's like the more time you spend in this game, you just give yourself permission to be shit, and it's fine.
Hmm.
I think that's a bit. I think that's the biggest thing that's missing from guys. It's the permission to
Yeah.
be shit, permission to run out of things to say, permission to not be feeling it. We're just humans. We're animals responding to incentives, and we're all just doing the best with the information that we've got. But yeah, I would love it if guys have listened to this stream and maybe something that we've said makes them think differently about this whole process. I do think it's a process that is massively overcomplicated. You go over to somebody and you just say something and you repeat that until you become somewhat proficient. That's it.
Yeah,
That's literally all it is. And then it's
it
about
is.
accountability after that. Okay, how make sure you're actually consistent doing it. That's all there is. That's literally it.
That's, I mean, just just to finish on as well. Like, that's why I'm so relieved that I found you, because I've done endless nightlife. Like, I'm 38. I had my first relationship at 15. So I've been active for 23 years. Like, I've had dry periods in that period, particularly the sort of mid to early mid 20s. It's probably my worst period when you're coming out into the adult world. It was actually all right. Like, the 15 to 20 for me was quite good because kind of a sports guy, so I had, good friends and stuff. It was, it's kind of just normal, really. Then you kind of go into the adult world, it becomes more of a challenge. And then it took me a few years till 27 to actually figure this out. And then I had all the nightlife experiences for basically a decade. And then I meet you at 37, and I'm like, this is like the final frontier, really. And it's what I've always really wanted. This is like, I'm so grateful. If you're a young guy, man, you have no fucking idea how lucky you are to have someone like Kristian. Like, honestly, just like, yeah, if you're a young guy, if he's got any space, just fucking work with this guy, because I've been looking for someone like you essentially for like fucking 20 years. So I'm so glad that I met you right now. And I've been on this process, on this cold approach, on this day game, all these realizations. And it's validated a lot of stuff I did previously, which has been good. Even like relationships and stuff, realizing that a lot of the girls you meet in the day, actually you're not compatible with them anyway, so you don't need to. Some of them you are, some of them you aren't. It's better quality, I think, overall, but like, I don't have any regrets about previous relationships, should we say. um but it's also given me a horizon where I'm like, okay, this is the final frontier now. There is really nothing beyond this, to be honest with you. Like, this is part of the final frontier. It's actually the first time in my life where I'm starting to think beyond everything. I'm thinking beyond my personal life. Like, what bigger things am I, wanting to do? Like, obviously things are going well anyway, but there's something about this process that has like, it's like this shit is basically getting, it's not handled yet. It's getting towards being handled though now. Like, certainly more than probably 90% of guys anyway. I'm already, and there's only really like the almost creme de la creme perfection level that I'm maybe trying to get to. So I'm like, right, I can actually really not worry as much about women now. I can actually just be really like, what's the big picture?
That's
Like,
it.
what are these big goals? Yes, I had them before, but you've always got this fucking thorn in your side. Like, I don't want to settle with an average woman. I don't want to settle with this crazy girl from a nightclub who's got mental illnesses. I don't want to, like, and you're trying to find the right thing. Whereas now you're just walking out into the streets and it's like, yes, I could approach. Yeah, maybe I'm on today, maybe I'm not, but it's there. And I can now really start to think bigger. And I think it's something like from your instincts. I don't think you can cognitively bullshit your way through this. I think, I do think you have to actually feel it on like a gut level. So yeah, I just wanted to just say that finally, because it's like, I finally feel like I've seen the end of the game in a way. Like, this is it now. Like, and I can start to think beyond it. I don't know what you think about that.
I think about it every day. I really do. There's very few people that I can have these conversations with. Like, YouTube likes me if I create just cold approach content. The reality is I'm so far beyond that now. It's not even funny. Like, if someone asks me a question like, "What's the best way to get a girl's number?" I can entertain that question. It's fine. I understand why they're asking that question, but it's almost like a non-league footballer asking like fucking Messi how to
Yeah,
dribble. It's like
yeah,
he's just so far removed that he's not even thinking about football anymore. Like,
yeah.
my whole goal, my whole philosophy is get this handled ASAP. Get this handled ASAP so you can actually focus on what matters. Like, that's the whole thing. And that's where everyone else who makes this content, they're service providers. They will teach you how to do cold approach. They don't teach you what happens after this, like the empire visions that you need to have. get the women's side of life handled. Know you've got the women's side of life handled. Now let's talk about your fucking legacy. Now let's talk about where you're actually going. Now let's talk about your ambitions, thinking bigger. Let's talk about who controls the money. Let's talk about how you've been brainwashed. Let's talk about why you think you want the things you want to want. Like that's the true game. It's not day game. Like I view day game as almost this corridor into a sense of enlightenment. And once you've got this and once you've gone through it, basically day game will teach you everything that you ever need to know about life. I believe that. You'll get all of the skills that you need, which you can then transfer into other avenues. But yeah, in terms of, I'm happy that you said that, because in terms of us thinking bigger, like that's what I think this process gives you, because it's like, wow, I never even thought that this was possible. I never thought I could do something like this. Like all of the bullshit thoughts, you realize that it is just you versus you. And I almost view day game as a spiritual playground into the next thing. It's like the catalyst for the rest of your life. So yeah, I would say for you, really write down what it is, like the ambitions that you have for your life, where you see yourself going within the next 2 years. And then when you've got like a crystal clear image of that, like you can get those things 1,000,000%. You've already done the hardest thing you're ever going to do. Like day game is biological suicide. 1% of guys do it. 1% of guys actually get good at it. So yeah, if you can do this, you can do anything. The world's yours. But yeah, I would get super clear on what it is that you actually want, like what the next step actually is. Once you know that, you can get it 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the words, mate. It's kind of, it just kind of confirms, it just really crystallizes the direction my thoughts are going in anyway. And yeah, it's a crazy process, to be honest with you. Even like yesterday, the approach I did yesterday, like I was a bit nervous going in. I did this, anyway, it was a half an hour approach with this girl. And in terms of like how that benefited the rest of my evening, I then go into my usual cafe, and it was just a bit more of myself. And there was a girl in there who's she works there. She's pregnant, and I'd never spoken to her about it, just because I thought, is it I'd overthought it. And then in the cafe, I was like, oh, I can see you progressing there. Just had a little joke about it with it. Ended up having like a 30-minute conversation with her. This woman who serves me coffee like the last 3-4 years, when I'm in and out of this place. And just a really nice conversation. And then as I'm coming home, I see a guy who's in my building, who I always cross paths with, and he's just sat at a bar. So I just basically join him and just kind of like, we just have a really good conversation with this guy. And that was just kickstarted by my approach. I probably wouldn't have had that first conversation with the girl in the coffee shop. I may have just not really bothered to speak to the guy, just give him a nod, whatever, in my building. So even in the short term, it gives you like it's a little pick me up in a weird way that can just be a little short term catalyst. And then there's the whole long term shit as well, like, which is, yeah, like I'm so grateful to be like, to have met you, and to also like be part of this group as well, where I can see like, all these very like, it's very interesting people we've got in the group.
Very, very eclectic mix. Like I remember you saying
totally
to me, like, imagine where we'll all be in 10 years. It's crazy thought that.
Nuts.
In that big fucking villa you're gonna buy for us.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. The Entourage. Yeah.
The Entourage empire is fucking getting built brick by brick.
Why not, mate? Honestly, why not? Like, why not be this band of eclectic characters? There's some talent in there, man. So like, yeah, who knows where it all goes?
The way that I envision it is, we all get together, like just like the entire clan of people. We have the big fucking villa on some private island. We go there for secret meetings. We have proper conversations. Everyone is just like hyped up on good energy. One of us becomes president of Botswana. It's probably gonna be Tom. And yeah, we just dominate. That's what it's about, isn't it? Just dominate, conquering, and just live a good life, And then fucking hell, the families, the weddings. It's crazy, man. It's fucking crazy. It's mad. Like, yeah. Mad. But anyway, listen, I'll let you go because this has been a really good conversation. Thank you for dedicating your time as always. Really appreciate it. And yeah, man, what have you got planned for the rest of the day?
I'll probably be heading out. Just heading out for my evening stroll. To be honest, I've had quite a long day. Just winding down here. So yeah, nothing big today. What about yourself? You having a romantic birthday dinner with Ephraim?
With Ephraim? Yeah, me and Ephraim are gonna go out for Greek kebabs. Yeah, that's not a euphemism. Yeah, probably. But yeah, it should be a good one anyway. But yeah, no, good. Thank you. Enjoy your evening stroll. I'll catch up with you again soon.
Nice one, mate. Take it easy.
Bye bye.